I'd like to welcome Shinko Rick Slone, and presenting today. Is there someone that can ring the bell for us? I always like to do that myself, but I can't do it today, so this makes it official. Let's get started. Opening words today. Our theme is embracing resilience. The center of our activity is love in our hearts. Could we have someone light the chalice? Personal resilience is an individual's ability to adapt to adversity, stress, or trauma, utilizing mental, emotional, and physical strength to recover. Community resilience is the collective capacity of a group of people to withstand shocks, maintain core functions, and thrive together through collaboration and shared resources. Certainly in these days, we have an opportunity to practice community resilience. And the chalice lighting, if we can say this together, we light this chalice, the quiet of the truth we carry, and for the fullness of our heart. In the circle, we honor courage it takes to live openly, the softness that sustains us, and the joy and the power that grow when we gather. As the chalice glows, we may feel steadiness rise in us. May we trust our becoming, messy, radiant, unfolding, wholly belongs to us. Thank you. Before we greet one another, is there anyone here for the first time would like to introduce themselves? Okay, seeing no first-timers, let us greet one another. If we may, let us return to joys and concerns. Yeah, bring the bell. Thank you. Those who would like to share joys and concerns, please step up now. Well, there being no spoken joys and concerns, I will. Oh, yes, please do. Come up.
I don't know how this works, so I've just started. I've been here a couple of times this year, and I live just down the road. My name's Catherine, and looking forward to the service or the meeting today, whatever we call it. I'm a member of a spiritual community in Minneapolis. It's the Meditation Center on University Avenue Northeast. There is a Zen-sponsored, various Zen centers. There's a silent walk in Minneapolis starting at Powderhorn Park this afternoon. I just wanted to announce that. And also that my spiritual community has lost quite a few members, or say lost, as our belief is that they walked on. And the most recent one is a very beloved member of the community, teacher and psychologist. His name's Jim Nelson, from Minnesota residents, and we can just hold some space for this gentleman that his transition goes smoothly. And take a rock for Jim, and goes in the water. Is that? There you go, Jim. Peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing no one else, I release a... Okay.
This is a joy because I'm witnessing a lot of people have stepped forward to help to keep our community safe in a variety of ways. And the teamwork is just amazing, and they're finding joy in each other's commitment to community safety in River Falls. Thanks.
Thank you. If no one else has come up, I will release the larger stone into the water, significant of the unspoken joys and concerns. And now, Rick, Slone, if you are ready.
Yeah, let's test it from this distance. How's that? Does that work? Good. Okay. Thank you so much. Well, I had a lesson this morning that it is certainly always possible to lose one's way. I arrived just in the nick of time because I turned the wrong way and was headed towards Hudson. And I wasn't able to turn around until Kearney Avenue, I think it is. Yeah. And so I made it just in time. So I was told that the theme for this month is resilience. And as you can, is it posted up there, the title? I gave it the title, Touching Grass in Tang Dynasty, China. And eventually I'll share with you a text from Tang Dynasty, China that inspired the title and the theme of what I wish to share this morning. First, let me say it's a delight to be back. I've been in relationship with the Unitarian Universalist Center for about eight years or so. For a while there, my group would meet in the space back there and have our meditation once a week, and then we would have a gathering and a potluck once a week. And I've been honored to be invited to come share with you on a number of occasions over the years, and here I am again. As I said, my intention is to work my way back to Tang Dynasty, China. Actually, we're going to be doing a lot of time warping because we're going to go past Tang Dynasty, China, and then back. We're going to end up in Tang Dynasty, China. So buckle your seatbelts. But I want to start, let me look at my notes. And where did I put my glasses? There we go. I got a little frenetic when I realized I'd made the wrong turn, so need to try to settle in a little bit here. Okay. First, something that I was on Facebook. How many people here don't use Facebook? Sure. Oh my goodness, quite a few. Well, I haven't made that step yet. I do occasionally visit Facebook. And I found a post by this person talking about anxiety and worry. And she said that anxiety and worry are really unproductive. You know, they don't have an impact on any outcomes. They're quite useless, was her point. Anxiety and worry are quite useless. They don't actually help us accomplish anything. And I think that's true. I think that's correct. But the implication in her short presentation was that we should abandon anxiety and worry. But I don't think that's really possible if we want to retain our humanity. I mean, given what is happening in the Twin Cities right now, would it be appropriate to dismiss anxiety and worry about the fate of our communities, given what's happening in our community, in our nation? It seems to me, if we're going to stay human, anxiety and worry, although useless, unproductive, is inevitable. We're going to feel those things. The question is what to do with that. And so are we relegated to a state of perpetual anxiety and worry? That would be not so great. There must be some way to mitigate, although our human heart requires us to be concerned when precious human lives are at stake. If we stay in that state without mitigation, without some relief, then we're in that unproductive state. We can't do anything really helpful or really useful. You know, we must take care of ourselves, figure out how to take care of ourselves. So we're going to time travel to classical China around 400 BC. A brief tale about the legendary figure Lao Tzu. I say legendary because historians dispute whether Lao Tzu even existed or not. But there's an ancient story about Lao Tzu, who was a wise person, an archivist at a imperial palace. And people would, because of his reputation for being a wise person, people would come and visit him. But this was during the period of the Warring States in China, a very disruptive time. And the story goes that he despaired of the state of society and decided to leave and go into the wilderness. And as he was passing out of the gate to enter the wilderness, the gatekeeper stopped him and said, "Venerable sir, please, before you go, would you please share your wisdom with us? Don't leave us hanging. Give us something of your teaching." And the legend is that's when he composed the Tao Te Ching, the 81 chapters or so of that famous text, the Tao Te Ching. So when thinking about this story, sometimes one might be tempted to think that he copped out, that he abandoned the battle, the struggle. And when I think of it, I think that something precious was in jeopardy, and he didn't have the support system to maintain his precious spirit in that context. He didn't have this is all speculation about somebody that may not have even existed, but for the sake of the story, that if he stayed in the palace and all the intrigue, all the violence, that his spirit would be crushed. And he didn't have a community of support, so I just have to go cultivate my spirit in nature, because I can't seem to do it here. So that's my take on the story, is that, he just, in order to keep his humanity, he felt he had to leave the complexities, the conflict of his time in the court. And in one of the chapters of the Tao Te Ching, I take as expressing his situation. This is chapter 20 of the Tao Te Ching. He says, "Give up learning and put an end to your troubles. Is there a difference between yes and no? Is there a difference between good and evil? Must I fear what others fear? What nonsense." And then he goes on to describe how he felt out of place. "In spring, some go to the park and climb the terrace, but I alone am drifting, not knowing where I am. Like a newborn babe before it learns to smile, I am alone without a place to go. Others have more than they need, but I alone have nothing. I am a fool. Oh yes, I am confused. Others are clear and bright, but I alone am dim and weak. Others are sharp and clever, but I alone am dull and stupid. Oh, I drift like the waves of the sea, without direction, like the restless wind. Everyone else is busy, but I am alone, am aimless and depressed. I am different. I am nourished by the Great Mother." So the bulk of this chapter is expressing kind of like despair and dismay. He can't fit in. And that's kind of evident from the text. He can't fit in and maintain his connection to the Great Mother. In Taoism, the Tao is sometimes represented with the feminine imagery of the Great Mother, the Valley Spirit, which is woman, primal mother. So I offer that as evidence for my theory that Lao Tzu left the court because he couldn't keep his connection to the Tao, to the way, to the Great Mother in that context. And if he lost his connection to the Great Mother, all would be lost. So in his context, in order to maintain his resilience, in order to maintain his humanity, he left and went out into Mother Nature's garden. And he felt he had no choice. Okay. Now I want to jump back to the 1950s, and in particular Martin Luther King. We all know, I think everybody here knows the name Rosa Parks, right? That event was the springboard of the civil rights movement. And eventually, Martin Luther King was invited to become president of the Montgomery, I wrote it down, the Montgomery Improvement Association. He was freshly ordained and 26 years old, and he became the president of the Montgomery Improvement Association, which was formed shortly after the bus boycott began. The bus boycott was kind of like a grassroots thing that happened. People of color refused to use the buses. They formed carpools or they walked, and eventually it organized. And Martin Luther King, Dr. King, apparently had this habit of having meetings before any kind of action of protest to set the tone, that we do this out of love, we do this nonviolently. We do this according to the social gospel. It's kind of like preaching to the protesters, the soon-to-be protesters, what kind of spirit to maintain as they engaged in the activity. And he gave a speech at the MIA, the Montgomery Improvement Association, on November 14th, 1956, at the Holt Street Baptist Church in Montgomery. And this is a little paragraph from that speech that he gave. All along, we have sought to carry out the protest on high moral standards. Our methods and techniques have been rooted in the deep soils of the Christian faith. We have carefully avoided bitterness, and we have sought to make love, even for our oppressors, a reality in our lives. These 11 months have not at all been easy. Often we have had to stand amid the surging murmur of life's restless sea. Many days and nights have been filled with jostling winds of adversity. Our feet have often been tired, and our automobiles worn. But we have kept going with the faith that in our struggle, we have cosmic companionship, and that at bottom, the universe is on the side of justice. So he emphasized that cosmic companionship, coming from a very, very deep place of radical, unconditional love and faith that the universe at bottom is on the side of justice. So that cosmic companionship, that connection to the Great Mother, he felt was integral to doing the work, and that without it, that was the power, that was the soul force, which he learned from Gandhi. That was the soul force that could bear fruit, authentic fruit. And I think that's very true. And trigger warning, I'm about to drop an F-bomb. In context, okay? I've been observing what's going on in the Twin Cities, and I'm gratified that by and large, the protests and the rapid response recording of the events, the activities of ICE on the streets, has been nonviolent. I haven't seen hardly any violent, aggressive behavior on the part of protesters. I have heard a lot of fuck ICE, however. There's the F-bomb. And as gratified as I am by how the protests are unfolding, whenever I hear that, they would be much stronger. The protests would have more moral force if they could refrain from dropping those F-bombs. And and it becomes a chant. It becomes a mantra. There are masses of people chanting that F-bomb. A small criticism, but a criticism nonetheless. If they could, tune their vibe a little bit and refrain from denigrating the ICE agents, as tempting as it is, offer the resistance, offer the protest, do the recording, but out of love. How can you possibly do that out of love? Well, if you know the Great Mother, if you know the cosmic companionship that Dr. King talks about, then you can. You can transcend the emotions of the moment, not ignore them, not repress them, but rise above them. Then the work would have moral force. Much more. It has some moral force already because a lot of restraint is being practiced, I think. But it could have even more moral force if they didn't denigrate those whom they're resisting. So, check my notes again. So, I propose that that's the source of resilience in difficult times such as these, is that connection. Call it what you will. Call it God, if that works for you. Call it the Great Mother. Dr. King was grounded in the social gospel of the Christian faith, not Christian nationalism whatsoever, but an entirely different breed of Christianity. But he learned from others outside of the Christian tradition. I think from what little I've studied of the man and his life and his work, he had an authentic connection to spirit. And that authentic connection to spirit is what's required, I propose. However you conceive of it, whatever images or concepts you use to create a channel for that connection is the prime directive, to borrow a Star Trek term. It's the most important thing. And it's often lacking because the society in which we live, according to the Buddha, is driven by the three poisons of greed, hate, and delusion. And capitalism, the various ills we have are generated, according to the Buddha, by desire for money, for possessions, identifying what tribe you're in, and what tribe is the enemy. That's the hatred part, and the confusion that this is the real world, and we have to live this way. This is it. We live in a world of greed, hate, and delusion. So, in order to not lose our spirit, in order to not be subsumed by this world of confusion and hatred, we need dual citizenship. We need a dual citizenship. What do I mean by that? We don't want to abandon the suffering in our world. We want to be good citizens of our nation, try to resist energies, impulses that would dismantle the good in our nation, the good that our nation was founded upon. So we want to stay, in other words, we want to be U.S. citizens, faithful U.S. citizens to the principles that were founded, and in some instances, such as the civil rights movement, where they've been lived up to some degree. So we want to maintain our U.S. citizenship, but we also need a citizenship in the nation of the Great Mother, for lack of a better way of putting it. So how do we maintain a dual citizenship? And we keep our U.S. passport, but we also have our cosmic, if you will, passport, so that we don't have to, if things get too hot, too heavy, and we have difficulty maintaining our cosmic connectedness, then we can take our cosmic passport and get on the cosmic train or airplane and go dwell in our other citizenship for a while. Does that make any sense at all? Okay. So now we're going to go to Tang Dynasty, China, and we're going to touch some grass. So, are you familiar with that term, touching grass? It's become a popular meme. Some are saying yes, some saying no. Its response, I think it emerged as a antidote to doom scrolling. You're doing all this, and you're in this world of clickbait and people trying to push buttons and get a strong emotional reaction and triggered by that. And some people say, oh, you need to go touch some grass. You know, get out of that world, get out of that citizenship, and go dwell in an entirely different place. So that's the inspiration for entitling this talk, Touching Grass in Tang Dynasty, China. And as I say, the story I'm about to speak on is from Tang Dynasty, China, and I submit that it's an explication on how to touch grass. Okay. The name of the case, a little background. This is called sometimes called a koan collection, which means it's a collection of Zen stories with poetry and commentary surrounding the original case. And the original case is usually two monks or a group of monks, and they're having an encounter. It's called an encounter dialogue. So this is an encounter dialogue, and it has an introduction, and the introduction goes, scholars plow with the pen, orators plow with the tongue. So they're using the word plow metaphorically to say that scholars work with their pens and orators work with their tongues. We patched robe monks, this is a patched robe, and so we Zen monks lazily watch a white ox on open ground, not paying attention to the rootless grass, how to pass the days. So that's the introduction, kind of trying to set the tone for the case. And the thing about the introduction to take note of is that Wan Song, who wrote the introduction, says that, okay, scholars work their pens, orators work their tongues. We monks lazily just watch a white ox. We're not working. Zen monks are on perpetual retirement. We don't work, is what he's claiming. But what we do is we lazily watch this white ox. And in Zen lore, a white ox is a metaphor for true nature, for Buddha nature, for our full, uncontaminated humanity. And so we lazily just watch our relationship with the Great Mother, would be one way to put it. We lazily just, appreciate our connectedness, our cosmic connectedness. So we leave the world, the hustle bustle, and we just lie in the Great Mother's lap. That's the tone of the introduction. Now here's the case. Daizong asked Zuishan, where do you come from? And so Zuishan is a visiting monk. He's on pilgrimage, visiting various monasteries. And so he comes to Daizong's monastery, and Daizong asks him, where do you come from? Zuishan said, from the south. Daizong said, how is Buddhism in the south these days? Zuishan said, there's extensive discussion. Okay, some context for this. In the history of Zen, there is some controversy. There is some debate. In particular, there's schools of Zen that believe in sudden awakening. Something happens, something clicks, and all of a sudden you're awake. Whereas other schools say, no, it's gradual. You practice steadily, and over time, you start to open. And you open more and more until finally you're fully awake. So these were hotly debated. There's two separate schools in conflict with each other. Heated conflict. And when this went to Japan, this conflict at times resulted in violence and the destruction of monasteries. It got that hot. So I think that's the background of the case. Zuishan comes to Daizong, and Daizong says, where are you from? From the south? Well, how's Buddhism in the south? Well, there's this big heated debate. Lots of extensive discussion over what's the real way. conflict over what's the real way. And then Daizan says, how can that compare to me here planting the fields and making rice to eat? How does that extensive discussion and that conflict compare to, I'm here in my monastery, I'm planting seeds in the fields, and I'm eating my rice. How does that compare? And then so Zuishan says, what can you do about the world? Daizan says, what do you call the world? So, he's not telling Zuishan that there's no place for extensive discussion. He's saying, well, how does that compare to this world? Isn't this also a legitimate world where I'm sitting here eating my rice and I go out and I plant my seeds? So Daizan is pointing out, I feel, to this possibility of dual citizenship. You can go ahead and have your view and try to argue your view. That's probably inevitable. But how does that compare to this plain and simple life? And what are you going to do about the world? What are you going to do about the violence and conflict? But he doesn't say, what are you going to do about the violence and conflict? He says, what are you going to do about the world? Suggesting to Daizan that he's escaping reality, that he's fleeing responsibility by saying, you're abandoning the world. Basically, that's what I hear. When he says, what are you going to do about the world? He says, aren't you abandoning the world? And Daizan says, what do you call the world? So he's suggesting the possibility that there's more than one world. He's suggesting the possibility that it's possible to maintain dual citizenship. He's not dismissing Zuishan's world. But he says, you have a choice, which world to live in and how much time to spend in each world. So as I said, there's poems attached to these cases. And this poem by a monk called Tang goes as follows. Source and explanation variously are all made up. Passing to ear from mouth, it comes apart. Planting fields, making rice, ordinary household matters. Only those who have investigated to the full would know. Having investigated to the full, you clearly know there's nothing to seek. Zifang, after all, didn't care to be infaughed as a marquis. Forgetting his state, he returned, same as fish and birds. Washing his feet in Kanlang, the hazing waters of autumn. So there's a lot embedded in this poem, and a lot refers to classical Chinese lore that I don't have time to get into. But the first part of the verse, source and explanation variously are all made up. So this debate over which is the true Zen, the sudden or the gradual, that's made up. It may have efficacy, it may have usefulness, but it's a human construct. Passing from ear to mouth, it comes apart. It doesn't touch the source. This debate about which is the true way, which is the true faith, which is the true political position, those are human constructs. As such, they belong to a certain citizenship. They're made up. They may have efficacy, or they may have deleterious effect, depending on what place of the heart it comes from. But ultimately, it's made up, and passing from ear to mouth, it comes apart. So I think that's Tian Tong's addressing the monk who says, there's extensive discussion. This is the world. Well, fundamentally, that's a made-up world, is what Tian Tong is suggesting. Then he says, planting fields, making rice, very ordinary household matters. Only those who have investigated to the full would know. Having investigated to the full, you clearly know there's nothing to seek. So, Wansong offers commentary on that line. Even though planting the fields and making rice is ordinary, unless you investigate to the full, you don't know their import. The ancients would reap and boil chestnuts and rice at the edge of a hoe in a broken-legged pot, deep in the mountains. Their fortune was no more than contentment. All their lives they never sought from anyone. Their nobility was no more than purity and serenity. What need for bushels of emblems? Okay. So the text presents the notion that the cosmic citizenship is very, very ordinary. It's, planting the fields and eating rice. Ordinary matters, nothing extraordinary, nothing remarkable. But unless you investigate the importance of these ordinary things, you don't know their import. So the other citizenship, the cosmic citizenship, is very plain, very ordinary. It's the way the light is shining through the glass, illuminating the brightness of the snow. It's the sound, when you're by the river, it's the sound of the river. It's the taste of your food. It's the feeling of breath in your lungs. Very radically plain. But unless you investigate, unless you commune with it, you don't realize its import. Like walking. We have a very sunny day today, blue sky, walking under the sun. Very ordinary. But if you are awake to walking on this earth, under the sun, really, really dropping all concerns, dropping anxiety and worry for a while, and really being present to the fact of this, living under this star, that's 93 million, no, that's the moon, I forget how far the star, however far it is. It's very plain and ordinary. We do it every day. And yet the magnitude of it is so easily missed if we don't make space for it. So that's the other citizenship. Very plain, very ordinary, nothing spectacular, nothing revolutionary. There's a place for revolution, probably, but that would be in the other citizenship. When when in the course of human events it becomes necessary to alter or to abolish, then we do, But that's in the first world. It could be very necessary. But this other world, very ordinary, very plain, nothing spectacular, yet that's where the Great Mother lives. That's where the cosmic connection is. So plain and ordinary that it's easily missed. And yet if you investigate it fully, it's miraculous, it's wondrous, and it fills our heart with gratitude and love. Having that cosmic companionship is necessary to stay human. To stay human, it is necessary to touch grass and not be subsumed by the worry and the anxiety that is quite appropriate with one passport, and that anxiety and worry, if legitimate, not based on selfish or ignoble reasons, but if it's a legitimate anxiety and worry as we have today, then that anxiety and worry can be provocative of activity, of action. But you got to carry both passports, so that so that you don't lose yourself in the one. So. Whoops, I left that book behind. It's in the bag. It's Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. I gave a different talk. This one, yeah. I gave a different talk this morning at our Zen group, and so I forgot which books I need. So this is something that Suzuki Roshi, the founder of Zen Center, said to his students. And this is Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, one of the best known books on Zen in the 21st century. Well, I can't find it, but I can remember it. I can paraphrase it for you. He says, our Zen way is not difficult, he says. It's just very, very plain, very ordinary. He says, I think people, especially young people, he says, find this point rather difficult. But when your practice is plain and ordinary, everyday life itself is enlightenment. So that's a reconstruction of what he says. So, spiritual practice, citizenship, cosmic citizenship, is very plain. It's just walking under the sun. It's just, feeling the chill of a winter morning. And it's hard to, unless you investigate to the full, it's hard to appreciate. Unless you take time, make a date with the Great Mother, to hang out with the Great Mother, say, yeah, I'm going to go for a walk along the Kinnickinnic River, and I'm going to dwell with the river, with the sound of the river, with the way the light plays on the river. And I'm going to do my best to stay there with that plain old sound of the rushing water, with the trees. I'm going to empty myself of all other concerns and just be there. Over time, you can feel welcomed by the river. You can feel welcomed and accepted by the trees. You can feel that you're dwelling in that world. It doesn't, it's not kind of a work. You're just lazily watching that white ox on open ground. You're just lazily present to the sounds of the river. You're just lazily present to the sun shining. It takes a kind of discipline of renouncing for a while the legitimate anxiety and worry that you hold for the other world, and say, well, I'm going to hang out here for a while, where nothing is happening, yet everything is happening. it's hard to talk about because it's so plain and simple. It's just this moment. But you can make a date with the Great Mother. It requires a kind of a discipline, but not a discipline of strained effort, but a discipline of letting go. You can let go of the world of strife and conflict without fear, because it's not going anywhere. You can say, "Hey, Mom, I'm going to go. I'm going to go to Minneapolis for a while and protest. I'm going to try to remember you while I'm gone, and draw sustenance for my relationship with you. But and then I'll come back, especially in hours of need, when I feel overwhelmed. I know you're there, and I'll return and receive nourishment." Because that's what Lao Tzu is talking about in that chapter, when he talks about how I just don't fit in. I can't cope. I can't deal with this world right now. It's just too much. So I'm going to go get some nourishment from the Great Mother. And in the Tao Te Ching, that line, "I am nourished by the Great Mother," the Chinese character for mother, another legitimate translation is breast. So you could translate it legitimately, I care for no nourishment that doesn't come from the Great Mother's breast. Very visceral. See, it's so simple, so plain, but also very real, very visceral. When you drop anxiety and worry and really realize that you're walking under the sun, that the enormity of the sun, that's a palpable thing. It's not an idea, it's not an abstraction, it's a visceral experience. And we need to nurture and sustain that part of our humanity. And the issue of resilience almost disappears. It almost doesn't become a question, because you have those two passports always. And when push comes to shove, you can grab that passport and be embraced by something that transcends comprehension, but can be palpably felt. It transcends comprehension. You can't get your thinking mind around it. But if you take a break from trying to figure everything out, then that which cannot be conceived can be palpably felt. And that cosmic companionship will give you all the resilience you could ever need. So that's what I have to offer this morning. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick.
I have felt the same way about the language, because we know words can be violent. And it comes back at us. It hurts us to have that anger and violent. Yeah, if I hit my thumb with a hammer, I might say a bad word, but it just happens. But anyway, to be in peace, to watch where we're coming from, where the language is coming from, and to just catch it and to be present. And I have been heartened by the singing that has begun. If people have seen that, groups gathering in song, and how beautiful that's evolving into. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Announcements. February 15th, we will How We See Water by Grace Arcagio and Toba Flagav, and the Poetry Club will meet after the service. February 22nd, The Resilience of Vietnam by Prescott Berg. March 1st, theme, Paying Attention by Chad Snyder, UU Minister. March 8th, Role of the Observer by Eileen Korenick. And I believe Rich Purdy had a comment, had an announcement.
Oh yes, it's right here. That's why I sat here. This is a book. There's a book club going to talk about. And I was with Maureen at a funeral when the minister approached her about whether she was interested. He did it very gingerly, because he knew she didn't necessarily have the same type of beliefs as he does. So he's the pastor of the Spirit of Grace Church here in River Falls. And the book is here, Do I Stay Christian? And it has 2 meetings a week. Only one you need to go to. One's in the afternoon and one's in the evening. If you want to know about that, I've got the information here. So Maureen started the book, and she wrote a little bit down here, and is impressed with how much she has in common with the arguments against calling herself a Christian. Anyway, you can pick up the copy of the book at the Spirit of Grace Church office. It's inexpensive, $10 for a gently used copy and $15 new. So that's the Old Methodist Church, Spirit of Grace. Yeah. 2nd Street, yep. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Rick. One further announcement. On Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock, our spiritual studies group met here at the UU, and our agenda is basically we try to share questions, resources, and ideas about personal spiritual growth. Well, truth to tell, towards the end of our meeting, why we kind of evolved into a sharing of favorite hot dish recipes. But if you would like to join our group and share ideas and questions about personal spiritual growth, see me after the service. Or recipes, whatever. And for your support for UUSRF, thank you very much for your presence, and people have pledged very much, and we appreciate your pledge. And there is also a basket out in the hallway that you can contribute. Coffee treats and wonderful nibblings out in the kitchen after the service. And can we stand together and share our closing words?
Go up.